In front of 50 guests, my mom stood up and said I never did a thing for this family. At the family reunion in front of 52 people, my mom raised her glass, pointed at my sister, and said, "This is the daughter who's always loved us. The other one? She's never lifted a finger." I'd covered their mortgage and paid their bills for 9 years. I smiled and left. The next morning, I had 38 missed calls. The reunion was already in full swing when I walked into the Pinebrook Community Lodge. Red checkered tablecloths stretched across rented tables, buffet trays steaming with mac and cheese and pulled pork, toddlers weaving between folding chairs clutching juice boxes. Someone had dragged a Bluetooth speaker onto the wraparound porch and was blasting Kenny Chesney loud enough to rattle the screen doors. It was messy, loud, familiar chaos. But for the first time in years, I actually let myself hope. People smiled when I said hello. Cousin Janet offered me sweet tea with extra ice. I spotted my dad near the dessert table, laughing like he just remembered how, his belly shaking over a paper plate loaded with peach cobbler. And I thought, maybe this will be fine. Maybe it won't be perfect, but at least no one will end up crying in the parking lot this year. My sister Bethany was floating around the room in a white sundress from Target, barefoot on the wooden floors, glowing like she was auditioning for a sweet tea commercial. She was carrying a wrapped frame tied with yellow ribbon, making the rounds like she was campaigning for something. I didn't think much of it. I'd brought a gift too, a reservation for our parents at that fancy steakhouse downtown they always talked about visiting but never actually went to. Tucked the confirmation under their dinner plate before they sat down. That's how the evening was supposed to go. Quiet gestures, shared barbecue, a few awkward side hugs, nothing dramatic. But then Bethany stood up near the dessert table. Someone handed her a microphone. Why does every family gathering need a microphone? And she gave this sweet little laugh like, "Oh gosh, I didn't plan to say anything." Which meant she'd been rehearsing this speech for a week. "Sorry to interrupt y'all," she said, clapping her hands twice like she was calling a classroom to attention. "I just have a little something for our amazing parents." She turned with theatrical grace, held out the frame, and placed it in Mom's weathered hands. It was a collage of photos, beach trips to Gulf shores, birthday parties, random selfies on their front porch swing. No space for me, not even tucked in the corners. Mom blinked at the photos, then her face softened into that proud smile she saved for Bethany's achievements. She stood up slowly, her arthritis making the movement deliberate, raised her sweet tea glass, and said, "This is the daughter who's always loved us." A few people clapped. Someone let out a little ah. Then she added, louder now, "The other one? She's never lifted a finger." The room went dead quiet. Someone's fork clinked against their plate. A toddler's babbling seemed to echo. I didn't look around, but I could feel it, the confusion, the awkward shifting, the sudden need to pretend those words hadn't just hung in the humid Alabama air. I didn't say anything. Didn't cry. Didn't ask what the hell she thought I'd been doing all these years while she struggled to remember which bills were due when. I just picked up my purse, walked to the screen door, and left. No drama, no scene, no Jerry Springer moment, just this weird bone-deep clarity that if I stayed another second, I'd never be able to forget the sound of 52 people not standing up for me. I drove home in silence. 2 hours from Pinebrook back to my apartment in Huntsville, no music, just the blur of highway lights and 18-wheelers, and a quiet list forming in my head. How many times had I wired them money through Zelle? How many utility bills had I paid so they could get through another rough month? How many overtime shifts had I worked at the hospital so they could keep their house? I'd covered their mortgage. I'd paid their bills for 9 years. And in front of 52 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends who'd watched me grow up, I was erased like chalk on a sidewalk after rain. But fine. I smiled and left. 15 hours later, I had 38 missed calls. They started coming in around 6:17 a.m., which felt bold considering no one had cared where I went when I walked out the night before. The first few were from Mom, her contact photo still that old Christmas picture where she's wearing the reindeer sweater. Then a couple from Dad, then my favorite detail, 14 from Bethany. 14. The girl who hadn't called me in months unless she needed help filing her taxes suddenly turned into a telemarketer on commission. I made coffee in my little galley kitchen, sat on the edge of the granite counter I'd saved 2 years to afford, and just stared at my iPhone screen as it kept lighting up like a slot machine. Eventually, I picked up. Not because I was feeling generous, but because I was curious how they'd open this conversation. Oh, thank God, Bethany said, her voice rushed and panicky. We didn't know where you went. Are you okay? I sipped my coffee. I'm fantastic. Well, we can't get on the boat. What boat? She huffed like I was being deliberately dense. The group tour, the little sightseeing cruise they scheduled for this morning. We showed up at Lake Guntersville and they said it was cancelled. Something about the card being declined. Ah, I said. That makes sense. The card on file was mine, and I cancelled it last night. There was a long pause. I could practically hear her blinking through the silence. But why would you do that? She said, like I'd cancelled Christmas. Because Mom stood up in front of 52 people and said I'd never lifted a finger, I replied calmly. So I figured, why not make it true for once? Another silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of family chaos in the background. Someone was apparently freaking out about luggage. Okay, but you cancelled the whole trip? Bethany's voice cracked. Yep. Lodging too. The cabin was in my name. But they don't even have a way to get home. The rental car was also on my card. I'm sure it's been returned to Enterprise by now. Savannah, what the hell? I don't have money for plane tickets. That's okay, I said, watching a cardinal land on my apartment balcony. You're the daughter who's always loved them. I'm sure they'll understand. And I hung up. I didn't feel proud, not in that victorious revenge movie kind of way. No big swell of satisfaction in my chest. This felt different, still after 9 years of quietly transferring money every month, paying the mortgage when Dad's construction work slowed down, covering the electric bill, the groceries, the dental work that somehow became urgent every 6 months. The silence felt like the most honest response I'd ever given them. They didn't even know how much I'd covered over the years. Not really. And I'd never thrown it in their faces, never said, hey, just so you know, this vacation you're all enjoying? I paid for that. I didn't need confetti or applause or a framed collage. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered, like I was more than an ATM with their daughter's face on it. But apparently, a Target photo collage from Bethany mattered more than 9 years of financial support. You want to know the worst part? I wasn't surprised. That moment when Mom lifted her glass and announced that Bethany was the good daughter, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from years of this exact pattern playing out like a broken record. Bethany had always been the star, the performer, the creative one who made the mixtapes in high school and hand-painted Christmas cards with glitter that got all over everything. They ate it up like candy. I, meanwhile, was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who got a nursing degree and moved 2 hours away for better job opportunities. The one who paid down her student loans ahead of schedule and helped Dad refinance the house when he was too proud to ask anyone else. They'd call Bethany when they wanted someone to visit for the weekend, to sit on the porch swing and reminisce about old times. They'd call me when the water heater died or the roof started leaking. She gave them time and attention. I gave them money and solutions. Guess which one got better lighting in the family photos? The phone rang again. This time it was Dad. Savannah, honey, your mother's real upset. I bet she is. Can we just talk about this? We're stuck at the lodge until tomorrow now, and what, Dad? You want me to fix it? Like I always do. That's not, look what your mama said, she didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it, exactly? Because it sounded pretty clear to me. 3 days passed without a word from them. 3 whole days of blessed silence, which was almost amusing because clearly someone had coached them to give her space, like I was a toddler having a meltdown over bedtime instead of a 31-year-old woman who'd just been publicly humiliated after nearly a decade of financial support. By Wednesday, they were back home in Tuscaloosa. I only knew because Dad's Facebook location changed from Lake Guntersville to Home Sweet Home. His post read, "Great weekend with family. We are so blessed." No mention of me, obviously, and still radio silence from all of them. I pictured them walking through their front door, setting down their overnight bags, and slowly realizing things felt different. Maybe the cable wouldn't load because I'd cancelled the premium package I'd been paying for. Maybe the thermostat started flashing low battery warnings because the home warranty I maintained had lapsed. Maybe the grocery delivery from Walmart didn't show up Sunday like it had every week for the past 2 years. Most importantly, maybe they noticed that the automatic bank transfer for their mortgage, the one that normally hit their account first thing Monday morning, hadn't come through. I wasn't spying, but I did happen to check my email, and the alerts were already rolling in like clockwork. Payment declined. Transfer failed. Card expired. It was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion, quietly and satisfyingly. That evening around 9:30, there was a knock on my apartment door. I didn't answer right away. I just stood in my little hallway, back pressed against the wall, staring at the peephole like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. Then I heard Mom's voice through the thin door. "Savannah, honey?" I opened it. She looked tired, no makeup, wind-blown hair that hadn't seen a curling iron, wearing one of those thin cardigans she put on when she wanted to look fragile and motherly. Dad stood behind her with his arms crossed, not angry exactly, just present like a backup singer. "Can we come in?" she asked. "No," I said. "But we can talk here." She glanced around like she was embarrassed to be having this conversation in my apartment hallway where the neighbors might hear. "We just wanted to clear the air about what happened at the reunion." "I'm sure you did." What I said up there, about you never lifting a finger, that wasn't meant how it sounded. I tilted my head. It sounded pretty clear to me. "It was just a moment," she said, wrapping that cardigan tighter. "Bethany had just given us that beautiful photo collage, and everyone was watching, and she's been going through such a hard time lately with the job situation." "She's always going through a hard time." "She's trying, Savannah. You know how much she struggles, and she just wanted to do something nice for us." "So you decided to announce that she was the good daughter and I was, what? An afterthought. That's not fair." "No," I said. "What's not fair is paying over $150,000 toward your bills over the past 9 years and getting told I've never lifted a finger." Both their faces froze like I'd just spoken in tongues. "That number's real, by the way," I added, watching them process what I'd just said. "I ran the math Sunday night while you were figuring out how to get home from the lake." Mom blinked slowly. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the paisley wallpaper of my hallway. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, those surprise dental bills that only seemed to happen right before Christmas. That time I paid off Bethany's credit cards because she couldn't sleep from the stress. The new transmission for Dad's truck last winter. It all adds up. "We never asked you to do that," Dad said finally, his voice quiet. "No, you didn't ask. You just let me year after year, because it was easier than figuring out how to manage on your own." A heavy silence settled between us. Mom stared at the fake plant I kept by my door. Dad studied his work boots like they held the answers to life's mysteries. Then Mom said, "So what, this is all about money?" "No," I said. "It's about you standing in front of everyone who matters to us and calling me invisible, then expecting me to keep acting like I'm not. But we didn't think you'd take it so personally." I actually laughed. "Well, here we are." That's when she shifted into her soft voice, the one she used when she wanted something. "We just want to fix this, honey. We love you." Then maybe you should have said that instead of rewriting history with a speech and a photo frame. She nodded like she was really hearing me. But then she said, "Bethany didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Bethany didn't say it. You did." More silence. The kind that stretches until it becomes uncomfortable, then unbearable. Finally, I said, "If you came here hoping I'd bail you out of whatever financial mess you're in now, you're talking to the wrong daughter." And then I closed the door. 2 days later, Bethany showed up unannounced. She rang my doorbell twice like she was in some kind of rush, and when I opened it, she didn't wait for an invitation. She just walked past me into my living room like it was still 2015 and she was borrowing my straightener without asking. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to them?" she demanded. I shut the door calmly. "You'll have to be more specific." "They're panicking, Savannah. Dad said the mortgage is due tomorrow and they don't have enough to cover it." Her voice was high and thin. "You didn't even warn them?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean after Mom stood up in front of 52 people and announced I'd never done anything for this family?" She rolled her eyes. She got caught up in the moment. "Then let the moment pay their bills." "You're being spiteful." "No," I said, "I'm being factual. You all said I never helped. I'm just adjusting my behavior to match your perception of reality." "They don't have the money." Bethany's voice cracked with desperation. "You live with them," I pointed out. You don't pay rent. You don't cover utilities. But you do have time to make photo collages and post about self-care Sundays on Instagram. That's not fair. Neither was that speech. Bethany looked like she wanted to scream, but she was smart enough to know it wouldn't help her cause. They're our parents, she said finally. You're just going to let them lose their house? No, I said. I'm going to let you step up. You're the daughter who's always loved them, remember? And for the first time since she'd barged into my apartment, I saw her composure crack. Just a flicker, a little twitch at the corner of her mouth, a hairline fracture in the golden child facade. I can't afford to cover everything, she whispered. Then get a job. She turned and walked out without another word, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the frame. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because anything was resolved, not because they'd apologized or acknowledged what they'd put me through, but because for once in 9 years, I wasn't the one holding their entire world together. And I wasn't lifting a finger to change that. They went public with their grievances, starting with a Facebook post from Mom. A smiling group photo from the reunion, captioned, "Family means everything, even when some people forget that 2 hearts." The comment section filled up fast. She walked out just because your speech upset her? That wasn't even rude, you were just telling the truth. If someone gets offended by hearing the truth, maybe there's a reason. Woman shrugging. Nobody mentioned my name. They didn't have to. 52 people had heard the quote. Most of them were on Facebook. All of them could see the photo. A few distant cousins commented with crying face emojis. Someone posted a vaguely religious meme about forgiveness and family bonds. No one asked what I'd been doing for the past decade. No one questioned why the lake cruise and the cabin rental had mysteriously vanished when I left. No one seemed curious about how a family that had been struggling financially for years had suddenly afforded a weekend getaway. I wasn't tagged in the post, but I saw it. A family friend sent me a screenshot with just a shrug emoji, no words needed. For a week, I said nothing. Let them control the narrative. Let them paint me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family over hurt feelings. But then someone commented, she was always kind of distant, wasn't she? Never really seemed involved in family stuff. And Mom liked the comment. So I made my own post. I didn't write a long explanation or defend myself with paragraphs of justification. I just posted screenshots, bank statements, wire transfer confirmations, Zelle receipts, mortgage payment records, utility bills with my card on file. A paper trail 9 years in the making, laid out in chronological order like evidence in a courtroom. The final tally was spelled out at the bottom in simple black text. Over 9 years. $52,400 toward mortgage payments. $38,220 in utility bills. $23,650 in groceries and household expenses. $8,900 in medical costs and prescriptions. $7,500 when the roof needed emergency repairs. $19,200 for Bethany's community college tuition. $2,100 for Dad's truck transmission last winter. $2,800 for a family vacation deposit that got cancelled. And dozens of smaller emergencies I'd stopped keeping detailed records of. Total, $154,770. I didn't tag anyone. I just posted it, set it to public, then closed the app and went to make dinner. By morning, Mom's original post was gone. So were the follow-up posts from relatives who tried to defend the reunion speech. My phone started buzzing with messages I hadn't expected. From my Aunt Carol, I had no idea you'd done all that, honey. You were always so quiet about helping them. From Cousin Jake, holy shit, Savannah. If I were you, I'd never speak to them again. From Mom, nothing. From Bethany, we need to talk. The next time I saw Bethany, she looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Dark circles under her eyes, hair that hadn't seen a salon in months, wearing clothes that hung loose on her shrinking frame. She was carrying a plastic grocery bag that looked like it contained exactly 3 items. "Can we talk?" she said when I answered the door. I stepped aside. She walked in like she wasn't sure she was welcome anymore. "They made me get a job," she announced, like she was reporting a natural disaster. "Welcome to adulthood." "I'm serious, Savannah. They sat me down and said I had to start contributing because you were gone and you were apparently the one making everything work. Her voice broke halfway through the sentence. They said that. She blinked, realizing what she'd just admitted. I mean, not exactly like that, but they're really struggling now. You chose this, Bethany. At the reunion. In front of everyone. You were the daughter who'd always loved them, remember? I was just trying to do something nice. I didn't know Mom was going to say what she said. And you didn't correct her. I was caught off guard. No, I said. You liked hearing it. She didn't deny it this time. They need help, she said quietly. I can't cover everything they need. The job I got only pays $12 an hour. I studied her face, really looked at her for the first time in years. The messy hair, the wrinkled clothes, the way her hands shook slightly when she talked. She wasn't sleeping. She probably wasn't eating much either. The weight of keeping our parents afloat was crushing her, just like it had been crushing me for 9 years. Figure it out, I said, and closed the door. 3 months later, I heard through the family grapevine that Bethany had moved out. She'd lasted longer than I'd expected, but in the end, the bills and the constant stress had been too much. She found a studio apartment across town and didn't leave a forwarding address. Not long after that, Mom and Dad sold the house. The same house I'd helped them keep for 9 years. The one they'd said I'd never lifted a finger to save. They took the first offer they got and downsized to a rental duplex with thin walls and flickering porch lights. I know because Cousin Jake drove past it and sent me a photo with the caption, "Yikes." I never went back to see it. Not because I'm angry anymore, the anger burned out months ago. I'm just done. Some people think family is forever, that blood trumps everything else. Others learn the hard way that love, even family love, can be conditional. Did I go too far, or not far enough? I guess that depends on whether you think 9 years and $154,770 was enough lifting for one finger. What do you think? Was Savannah justified, or should family loyalty come before everything else? Share your thoughts in the comments below.